Hey, Covalence friends. So, today I want to show you how we can recreate the Studio Ghibli API. If you're not familiar with it, the Studio Ghibli API was just a little API that served up data about Studio Ghibli films. And I liked using it a lot. It was good data. I liked using it as just placeholder test data for a lot of applications or for demonstrations. And we even had it integrated as an API to utilize for a couple of our labs here at Covalence. So I was pretty sad to see it go. It went as a result of the Heroku free tier deprecating, so it was another casualty of that, unfortunately. But the creator does still have the repo on GitHub. He just archived it after that. So we can clone it, and I'm just going to utilize its data set so that way we can build up a quick little Express app and see just how quick it can be. So let's go ahead and hop to that. We've got the casualty here. Unfortunate, but that's the business decision that Salesforce decided to go with for their free tier app. So farewell. But we do have the repo available here. And I'm really just going to use it to grab that data.json file. Like, that's really the only thing we want from it. So we'll go ahead and clone it, the cd into there. I'm going to go ahead and nuke the git repo and just reinitialize it. Let's see. I'm also going to obliterate like every other file, like I said. Alright, and I'm going to go ahead and initialize this as a node application, so that way we can start installing some packages, get some nice little package management going on with this. Also going to go ahead and install Express and its types, because we are going to make this in TypeScript. Which means after all that, I'm going to initialize it as a TypeScript project. Alright, so as it's doing all of that, I want to show you a really cool feature of Node. So the JSON file that we basically cloned their repo for to utilize is just this giant JSON file of a few properties. It has 5 top-level properties. It's this big object that has film, people, location, species, and vehicle data. And each one of those is just an array of objects of individual items of that subset. So the original API, it had 10 possible endpoints. They were all GET requests available. For each one of these individual routes, you could access the entire route and get all items, or you could access one by an ID via a URL parameter. So, I mean, pretty standard REST API stuff. And I want to just recreate that as faithfully as possible. So we're going to take advantage of a really cool Node feature. I'm not going to be using FS. We're not going to be doing any file parsing. We can just import the file. And if you import a JSON file with Node, it will automatically parse that for you. So I'm going to go ahead and import Express just to instantiate our app real quickly. So we've got a new app, and then I'm going to go ahead and tell it to listen on a port. I'm going to go ahead and tell it to look for an environment variable called port, if there is such one, in case you do want to follow along with this and recreate it. So in the event you've got it deployed, it'll listen on that port. Otherwise, I'll default it to 9001. And I'm going to take advantage of the app.listens callback here to set up a console log. I always like doing this just because a lot of the time with my Express applications, I'm using something like NodeMon to rebundle my application upon every change. So seeing that console log is a signifier to me that, you know, everything's rebuilt and I'm ready to test it out. But I'm just gonna have it say servers up. So we've got, you know, our minimum viable product. We have an Express web server, but that's it. Let's get some data in here. So like I said, we can import the entire JSON file. And we'll just do a default import with this. And we'll likely have to change, our TypeScript config. We have to tell it to resolve JSON files. They're imported. Let's see. I could go find that resolve JSON module. Oh, cool. They actually have that defaulted to true here in the commented outline. So we've set that property to true. And now, with it imported, it's going to be that parsed object. So if I wanted to, I could destructure out all of those individual properties. Let's do that. So we have nicer, convenient variables to reference everywhere. So const, some curly braces for destructuring, is equal to data. So now I can extract out films. The beautiful part about TypeScript as well is, I mean, look here. Like it's auto-inferring like the interface, describing what an individual, you know, film would be. And we get autocomplete help just from, you know, lines 2 and 4. Like, this is amazing. Like, why would you not want to use TypeScript? It's so good. Let's see, films, people, species, vehicles, locations. Locations, plural. All right. So like I said, I'm sticking as faithfully as I can to the Studio Ghibli API. So I'll have just a single GET request to get all films. And this is going to be super, super easy. This, we're just going to respond with, well, that array of films. So easy peasy. What about to get a specific film? Now, the way they handled it is they allowed them to be received via the ID as a URL parameter, and they did that for every route. So you can use something like array.filter or array.find or like even a for loop. It doesn't really matter which method you choose, but that's how we will be accessing it. And so I'm putting a placeholder variable here in the URL called ID. And we're about to see a really cool thing that Express did like fairly recently, like within the last few months, I think, to where it will automatically parse URL parameters as delimited by colons in the URL. So like, if I do rec.params dot, you know, we'll see it autocomplete with ID here. So it's able to read that out from the URL, which I just think that's kind of neat. And then here, like I said, I'm going to do some filtration. And I'm doing it in array destructure over here because when you utilize filter, it returns an array of elements that match that condition. So if I'm expecting just one, I'm going to array destructure that. So this is saying, hey, whatever that array returns, at index position 0, save it to a variable film. So we'll take our films array and we'll filter, and for every film, what am I doing? For every film that we have, not every filter that we have. I mean, I could name it filter, but that's kind of a goofy variable name here. We'll return where the film.id property equals our ID from the request params. Now, what happens if there is no match? Well, we would get back an empty array from filter. And so if I array destructure, you know, an empty array, like what's an empty array at index position 0? And that answer is undefined. So film would be undefined, which we can just use as a falsy, truthy, you know, value check. So we can say if film, we will just send that. Else. And I can't really remember. If you do, please let me know, because I think it'd be great to have everything like a full one-to-one repro. I honestly don't even know if they sent a 404. I think they just sent everything as like a 200. I mean, we could also, you know, look at their source code, but what's the fun in that? And so in the event we don't have a match, I think they sent an empty object. They may have 200'd that as well, but I'll send a 404 here. I'm going to try to, be as faithful as a reproduction, but I still want to have some good RESTful API principles. So, all right. Now that really wasn't too bad. And in fact, it's about to get a lot easier, because if you look at kind of the structure of these, it's all like plural, 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 ID, singular, plural, singular, singular, ID, singular, singular, empty. Like it follows the motif of, oh, well, if I just change that string up, I could swap out some of the other endpoints, and yeah, that's all we have to do. We can sling out some code crazy fast now. People and species grammatically don't match up, so that's going to be handled a little differently. But, let's see what it takes to switch this over to vehicles. I'm just going to find all the next instances of the word film singular, since film to its plural has just one trailing S, and so does the word vehicle. And just like that, we have the vehicles endpoint up and running. I'll paste this again, and look at that. Same logic applies for locations. Location, locations, plural, there, singular, 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 singular. So it works out absolutely beautifully. Now, like I said, for like people and species, grammatically it differs. So here we can't be as like one step, refresh, but films will replace with people. And film for these next 5 instances, I'll just replace with a variable person, because that makes the most sense grammatically. So, we had to make 2 major changes versus 1. Not too bad in the slightest. And then finally, species. Ooh, if I could type for the life of me. And I'm pretty sure the singular form of species is also species. If you know this answer, please let me know in the comments, because I'm not 100% on this. I'm going to do like specium, or like specia, for my singular form. Specia looks weird. We'll do specium. But yeah, just like that, we did the legwork to get everything imported, did our first couple routes, and from there we just like extended that to like all the other, endpoints. And code-wise, like, it's not too bad. We're just doing some like filter. And like I said, you could use some other array method here. You could use like array.find, or like you could even do like an index of, or there's a multitude of ways you can access it. I just like filter. I use it a ton. It's kind of like my Swiss Army knife for a lot of data manipulation. So it's one I always, go to as a comfort method. So let's go ahead and get this running. TS node index.ts, just to test it out. Server's up, so I know everything's up and running. Whoops, I think I did 9001 as my port. Cool. So we're getting Express's default error handler page because I, don't have a home route. What the Studio Ghibli API did is they actually had a page with documentation they served up on the root request. So here, if I made documentation, I would put it there. We're not doing like documentation or SSR or anything. We're just doing a simple little Express server. But here we have, all of our films. And if we want to get Grave of the Fireflies, we can slap that in the URL after films. We should get back just that one singular raw object. And let's see. I'm going to do locations, but I'm going to hit it up with the ID of Grave of the Fireflies, so we should get an empty object back because nothing matches, which we do, thankfully. If I get rid of that, we should get all locations. So yeah, we've got all of our data coming back exactly as we would expect in the exact same format as the Studio Ghibli API, just because all it was doing was serving up objects or arrays of objects, just with a few GET requests. So It's pretty, easy and painless to replicate. And we also got to take advantage of this really cool feature of Node, which, automatically parses everything. And because of that, with TypeScript too, we also have automatically inferred interfaces. So if we want to do some more advanced stuff, like maybe I wanted to map over films and I'm not sure what I want to do with this data, but we'll just call it altered. For every film object, we can return a new object where we spread out the existing film object, and then title, and look at this auto completion action. It's just fantastic. F dot title dot to uppercase. We just want to have the title very angrily. And so that's just a really nice benefit of being able to have that data locally, is you don't have to create any interfaces. It's just automatically inferred. Anyway, that's all I've got for this. If you enjoy this, go ahead and subscribe. If you want to see any more cool content, please feel free to leave a comment about some other features you'd like us to implement or see, and we will happily look into doing videos just for that. So I'll see you guys later.